we're talking about ECGs. Why? I move around a lot, so you're going to be busy, Anthony.
I'm all for it.
All right.
Bring it on.
Okay, so one of the things is, when I talk about ECGs, why do we take ECGs? Why do we do them? Why do we perform them? Does anybody know? I'm going to have some participation. I'm a teacher, so.
Yes.
Why do we do ECGs?
Heart monitoring.
What's that?
Heart monitoring.
Heart monitoring. Okay, yeah.
The patient usually has a problem, which brings
Yeah, problem with what? Their heart, yeah. So what exactly are we measuring when we do an ECG? The electricity of the heart, because if you take the acronym and pull it out, electrocardiogram, right? Electricity, cardio is heart, and gram means record. I'm also a medical terminology teacher, so I might break that down too. So some of the main reasons why we do ECGs is to assess the electrical functionings of the heart. All right, it tells us a lot what's going on with it. It tells us how the conduction is moving out through the heart. It can tell us whether or not we have the electrolyte imbalances in our bodies. It gives us a really good information, and most of the time they don't hurt the patient, so that's a plus. All right, it's a
Unless they have chest hair.
unless they have chest hair, yeah. So I did ask Dave to demonstrate tonight. But when we talk about ECGs, we talk about a lot of different things, and I can't go into the whole gamut of what we do with ECGs. This would take a long time. There's people who spend a lot of time and energy in school learning all the main things of what ECGs do. They become really good at it. But as for medical assistants, we really need to understand why we do ECGs. We need to understand what a normal ECG looks like. Okay, when I first took a job as a CMA, I talked with my doctors like, well, why do you do ECGs? I worked in pediatric, and so a lot of times they're not doing a ton of ECGs on kids because kids' hearts are so young. They're brand new. They work pretty efficiently. But he was telling me, just talking to me about assessing the heart thing. And then when I went to a cardiologist, I said, what do you want medical assistants to know? He said, what I really want my medical assistants to know is if a ECG is within normal parameters. If it's not normal, they can come get me, and then I can assess whether or not we need to do more action. All right, and so that's kind of the big deal is understanding what a normal ECG is. But before we can get a normal ECG, we need to understand proper placement of the electrodes of the ECG. Okay, so proper placement on, I'm going to use this,
Yes.
is key to a good ECG. All right. Now there is a really great video that you guys can watch. You can look up proper 12-lead ECG by the ECG Institute, and they have a really good video of one of the top cardiologists going through and showing what a good placement looks like. Okay, and that's kind of where I developed my technique, was from this guy, because he teaches ECGs to a lot of different people all over the place. So one of the first things that they do is they look for proper placement. Does anybody know what's the first place that we're going to look for an ECG? How many of you guys have in school placed ECGs so far?
It has been a long
Okay, it's
time.
been a while.
Yeah.
All right. So the place that we're looking for right here is the fourth intercostal space. All right, and that's important. Right. So what we're doing is we're trying to measure this heart, which kind of hangs out right here, underneath the rib cage. Interestingly enough, I have a student right now who has a condition where all of her major organs are switched in her body. So her ECG had to be over here. So it was really interesting, and I like tricking my other students with her. So I go do an ECG with her, and they do it all correctly on this side. Like, you're wrong. Did you check your patient's chart? All right. Did you ask your patient? All right. So that's key. So most of the time, our hearts are going to be right here, and so what we're looking for is the fourth intercostal space, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is where our first placement of an electrode is going to be. So what I teach is, what we do is, if you feel right here on your chest, okay, we have what I like to call the sternal ridge. There's a proper name for it, but we're not that deep into anatomy and physiology yet. So I say a sternal ridge. Can you guys feel that on you?
Yeah.
So right along your sternum, there's a sternal ridge, and everybody's a little bit different, and some people are more prominent than others. Okay. All right. So the sternal ridge. This sternal ridge hangs out right at the second rib right here. So the second intercostal space is right below the sternal ridge. So if you take your finger and go across and then you go straight down, that's 2. That's your second intercostal space. It's a quick and easy way to find that. All right, so what I do is I go like this, 2, okay, actually I do it on this side, 2, 3, 4. And I actually place my fingers like this when I'm doing them so that I don't forget where the spaces are, because that can be a challenge on some people, especially when you're feeling around and they have thicker pad underneath your epidermis than some of the others.
Nice way to
Okay, you're feeling around and that you go like, oh, there's one, and then you kind of move around and you're trying to feel, you're like, oh wait, did I count that one already? And so I set myself up for success. I say 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, and I find my 4th, and straight across from here on the other side of the breastbone is where that 1, 2 go. All right? So now we have our first 2. The next one we're going to find, does anybody know what the next one we would find is? 4. Why not 3? You don't know yet? Like if you knew that, if you knew that answer, you'd be up here teaching this. Okay. So what we're going to do is we go 1, 2. We don't find 3 yet, but we find 4 first. So 4 is what we call mid-clavicular and on the 5th intercostal space. So we have 2, 3, 4, and usually where we want to put it at is you find your xiphoid process. You can kind of, usually what I say is where, I ask the patient, because I'm a guy, right? I ask, where does your breast, not your breast, but your rib cage come together at? And if I'm talking to a woman, I'll have her point there for me, and I ask, may I touch? May I feel? All right? And I ask because what does that do? It gives her power over whether or not she wants me to. And even before I even do this part, I always ask. All right, so may I touch? Because we don't know where people are coming from. So I feel, and then normally what you do is you can create a little box. Right here. Right where these 2 intersect is where the 4th one is going to go. So once you have your 4th, you place your 3rd right between these 2 guys. So you create a little line. And then the 5th one is going to be at what I call the anterior axillary line. It's right where, if you take your finger and go, bloop, and you make that noise too, it really helps. Bloop. Okay? So you place it right there, and you draw a line straight down from the 4th one down to where that 5th one and this would intersect. And then in the mid-axillary line is straight down. So you got kind of this deal how it looks like this. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So straight line, straight line. On a person though, it's going to look curved. Okay? That's why whenever my students take the poster of ECG placements, they always, if they're doing it off of that, they always do it wrong because they want to follow the curve, the natural curve of the body, and a lot of times that isn't a good where good placements are to get a proper ECG. Okay, so we got to know our anatomy. So the teachers in here have got to like me because I'm saying you got to know your medical terminology and you got to know your anatomy. Okay, pay attention in class, kids. All right. There he is. So next, all right, we got to know, once we get our placements going and our ECG machine says, all right, you got them all there nice. You're going to run an ECG, and then we got to understand what the paper is that we're looking at. What does all those things do? What are all those little bumps and lines and things doing? All right? So our ECG is divided into segments and intervals. All right, what this does is it allows us to interpret and analyze the ECG so that we can figure out what's going on with that heart. Okay? So a segment is a portion of an ECG between 2 waves. All right, so if you can see here, here's our P wave, here's our R wave, and our PR segment is right here in between those two. Okay? All right. So our PR segment, what that is measuring for us is it's measuring from the end of atrial depolarization to the beginning of ventricular depolarization. Does anybody know what that means? All it is when they pump. All right, so this little P wave is the pump of the atrium. This R wave is the pump of our ventricles. And this measurement right here is just telling us from the end of the atrium to the beginning of the ventricle pumps. All right? Now these things happen pretty quickly in a heart, and so you hear the thum 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 thum, but there's actually a little bit of an interval there. All right? Okay? And it represents the time needed for the impulse to be delayed at the AV node. All right? So the heart, if we look at our heart, okay, I draw fantastic hearts. Okay. All right. So we have the heart here. We have the SA node, the pacemaker of the heart, and then it travels over to the AV node, and then it goes down. Okay. Then you got little fibers that come around like this. Okay. And so all it is it's measuring that time it takes for the electricity, the electrochemical impulses to move through those areas. Okay. And then we have our ST segment. A little bit later on, this will become an important little guy. Okay? Basically, all it is it's measuring the time it takes for the ventricle to pump, and then the time between it takes for it to pump, and then for it to relax back up. All right, so this is how I talk about ventricles and atrium. Everybody go like this, right? Does it take an electrical signal from your brain to do this?
Yeah.
All right, now tell your arms to relax. Does it take an electrical signal from your brain to tell your arms to relax? It does. All right, because the ventricles are larger, they're more muscular than the atrium, that's what gets caught. This little measurement right here, this is just the electrical impulse telling those ventricles to relax, which we want, because if they don't relax, our heart can't pump. And so that's what the T wave does.
Is that what the problem with inverted T waves is?
I'm not quite for sure
Okay.
that particular question, but it may be, but again, I'm not a doctor, so that's a good question for my doctor. You guys should be really good at saying that.
Thank you.
So, I mean, and then you say, I'll write that down for you so that we make sure that we cover that, okay? And then we have an interval, the length of a wave or the length of the wave with a segment. So here we have a PR interval, so it's the beginning of the wave with this segment. All right? We have the QT interval, the beginning of the Q wave, which is this little guy here, to the end of the T wave here. All right? So these are all become important measurements. All right? We just talked about the QT, PR and the QT. All right? And then we have a baseline. All right? The period when the entire heart returns to a resting polarized state, which is usually right after the T wave here. Okay? On some ECGs, we have a little U wave, and there's actually reasons why, actually three main theories on why you have a U wave, and I won't go directly into those because that's a specific question that I ask my students and that they have to remember. They have to be in class to hear it because it's not in their book. That's how I take attendance sometimes in my class. I'm giving up some teacher secrets right now for you guys that are students. So the U wave here, there's a lot of different reasons. One of the main thoughts is that it's a reverberation of the heart compressing, of the ventricles contracting. So it gets caught up in the repolarization, the relaxation, and then it's a reverberation. It's like a little bing, bing, like that. That's what they think that they're catching. And there's a couple other thoughts too.
That's the best explanation I've ever heard of
That's a good explanation.
So, I mean, and that's a theory. There's three main theories, and then there's a couple other smaller theories. It's interesting when you start going down that line, what it does, okay? And then we talk about our leads, okay? What are our leads? The leads are the leads are what we attach and the pictures that they're taking. So when we say a 12 lead ECG, how many actual electrodes are we putting on somebody?
12. No,
10.
10.
Just 10. All right?
Because you've got 2 on that.
So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right? But it's taking 12 different pictures. All right? And that's how how I had to remember is like, oh, it's taking pictures, not where the leads are connected or the electrodes are connected. So we have 12 leads. All right? We have leads 1, 2, and 3. And when you look at a ECG printout, so you have your, this one's not good. It's not my classroom, so I won't throw it. Okay.
Of you.
All right, so you have your ECG printout. Usually you have a 1, a 2, a 3, okay? And so then you have your little ECG thing right here, all right? And it goes down the line. So this is picture 1, picture 2, picture 3. All right, so what these leads do is they're using 2 limb electrodes to record the electrical activity of the heart, okay? Lead 1 records the heart voltage from the right arm to the left arm. Okay, so it's taking a picture like this across your heart. All right? So like this here. All right? Lead 2 is taking a picture from your right arm to your left leg. So it's looking at this picture of electricity. Okay? And then lead 3 is between the left arm and the left leg. So it's looking at how the electricity is moving kind of on this side of the heart. All right? Kind of this way. All right, so it's basically like if you were a paparazzi and there was a famous actor that you were supposed to take pictures of, you'd be walking around and taking different angular pictures. And that's what we're doing. We're basically the paparazzi for the heart. We're taking different angles of a picture. Okay? Lead 2 is interesting because it shows the heart's rhythm more clearly than other leads. So this is lead 2. It shows the heart's rhythm more clearly. And then what they do usually on a printout is what they have is an extended strip, what they call the rhythm strip, down here. And lead 2 actually offers a lot of information on what the electricity is doing on the heart. Is right here.
Would that show AFib?
AFib can show up a lot of different places, but yeah, it'll show up a lot in this lead right here.
Thank you.
Oh, got it?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right. Oops. The rhythm, I just talked about that. It's often, the rhythm strip is often requested by the physician because they want to be able to count between heartbeats. Okay. So this will be important. Each of these is how you check for your heart rate. All right, then we have our other leads. We have augmented leads. We have an AVR, which is augmented voltage, records the heart's voltage between the right arm and the central point between the left arm and left leg. So it's kind of doing a point down here, looking at how this electricity is looking at this part of the heart. Okay. AVL is looking at this part of the heart, and I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly. And then we have looking at the top part of the heart, because we have all these different ways that electricity is moving around our heart. Because our heart isn't flat; it's 3D, so the electricity moves around it in different ways. Okay. So basically, if we were to take our heart, if this was a person standing right here, it's looking at a lot of different angles of how this electricity is moving around it. All right, so here's a flat representation, and so if we were looking at the heart like this, it tells you about the different angles of how it works throughout the heart. This one I like better because it kind of tries to put it in a 3D. So here's your legs here. Here's your ones that are going over the chest wall, and so this is how it's grabbing those pictures all around. It's pretty interesting. Okay, and then we have our chest leads, which are V1 through V6. Basically what it's doing, it's recording the voltage from front to back of the heart. All right, so basically it takes, if you have your heart, it's taking a central point inside the heart, and it's kind of capturing that voltage that's moving through it, all right? And again, the leads must be properly located to ensure accurate and reliable readings. So if they're not in the right spots, we can get a little bit of a we might not catch what we're looking for, or we might capture something may show up that's not intended to be there. All right, and we've had a lot of misdiagnoses because of just an improper placement. You know, and one of the things that the cardiologist told me is that he had a patient where they thought that they were having just this really weird heart rhythm, and it's like, the plan is, if this is true, we're gonna have to open you up and all this stuff. And basically they did a follow-up ECG and couldn't find it, and then they had to do another follow-up ECG on that. And so what it was is, the very first one is somebody just placed something off on them. So it's easy to do, but that's why we do follow-ups, okay? Again, here is normally placed in ECG is recording when the paper is moving. It moves at 25 millimeters a second as it goes through. So have you guys ever seen how it moves through? A lot of times you don't, it takes it and it pushes out the paper. It's because it's recording that. But in the old days, it would actually run paper as it was recording it, and so you got to see how it was moving on that. That's pretty interesting. Okay? So, to understand normal sinus rhythm, which is a normal heartbeat, we've got to understand what the ECG paper is doing. All right? So here's a little bit of a piece of the ECG paper. All right? We got to understand the voltage, and we got to understand the rate of the speed. All right? So, two large squares, which would be from here. Those are two large squares. Oh, here's our large square. Here, all right, equals 1 millivolt of electricity going through. All right, so if it goes up, so they're saying this is a large square. So if a thing went up like that, one or two of these guys, it means it took 1 millivolt of electricity to create that. All right, now the speed is five of these large guys right here, 5 equals 1 second. All right? So up 2 large squares is 1 millivolt, 5 large squares across is 1 second. Okay? So that's in time and how those things are moving. So when we look at the ECG, so we have all these little boxes. So we can see how much time is elapsing between heartbeats, and then how much millivolts it's taking for that heart to contract and stuff like that. So that's why that's important. Okay? So, got to understand this. So what I like to talk about when we talk about interpreting a normal ECG is we have the CMA, because that's what we all are, of the normal ECG. All right? So C stands for calibration. All right? First thing we're going to do when we do an ECG on somebody, and then we got to look at that report to take it to our doctor, is we got to make sure it's calibrated. All right? So calibration, it must be standardized. It's a quality control measure that's on the ECG machine. All right? It means the ECG, if this is out of whack, it's not running correctly. Okay? So the normal standardization mark, the calibration mark, is 10 small squares high, or two big boxes high, and about 2 little boxes wide. Can it be 2.5? Yeah. Can it be just under 2? Yeah. The big one is this here. Okay? I should probably erase some of this stuff. Okay? So when you have, if this is about 3 or 4 or wider, that's not good. If it's taller or shorter, it's not good. It means it's out of calibration. Then we got to go to the instruction manual, look it up to see if we can do anything on it, because the doctor's not going to.
Yeah.
Okay, who's going to do that? He's going to say, "Can you fix it?" And I'm going to be like, "Sure, I'll try." All right, so we look at it, and then we're like, it says, "Call the manufacturer." Then you're like, "Oh, Call the manufacturer, all right? So you call the manufacturer and they said, well, it's gonna cost you like $500 a minute to have somebody come out and it's really expensive and they come fix it, okay? But it's important to check for calibration. We wanna make sure that your machine is calibrated, because if it's not calibrated and we run that on a patient, we're gonna have problems and they're gonna think they're dying, all right? And that's not good. And all of our patients already think they're dying most of the time when they come into the clinic. So I looked it up on WebMD and it said I have cancer. All right?
From an EKG?
Yep. All right, so I just talked about this. The machine must be adjusted. Consult operating manual for. So the next thing is measurement. Okay, so we have our calibration, we have our C, and now we are working on our M. We're looking at measurements. All right, so a normal heart range for an adult is between 60 to 100 beats per minute. Okay, so how we measure that on an ECG is between the R and R interval. Does anybody remember what the RR interval may be? So if we have our, I'll do it right here. Well, that's a big dip.
Yeah.
All right, this is not the best, but this would be our R. So P, Q, R, S, T. All right, so what we're looking at is an interval from this one to the next peak, okay? So here is our RR interval, okay? So if we remember, how long is 1 second? How many boxes need to go by for 5 large boxes, right?
Fine.
All right, so if we have 1 large box, that's 0.20 seconds. All right, this little box becomes important for our measurements. All right, so each little square inside of a larger square is 0.04 seconds. Okay?
At that rate.
Yeah, at the rate that it